friends, this is Covey. You just entered the crazy-ass Newfie channel.
Anyway, I don't know what you're smelling, ma'am, so how else can I help you? You need to give me a ticket, right?
Prior to this little bit of video that I'm about to show you in footage, I was parked in front of the Bank of Montreal, and I was going to enter, and I was speaking to my wife on the phone. My two dogs, one of them is a pit bull, her name is Muggy, and the other one, his name is Lakota, is a Rottweiler lab, decided to start fighting in my car, and they do that, and they're female dogs. Suddenly, as I'm talking to the wife and I just calm the dogs down, I see the flashing lights of the police behind me. So, I put the windows down. I just explained to them through the window that it was just the dogs. So I get out. I'm parked in a no parking zone, which I've been using for 17 years now. Never ever had any problems, no tickets or anything like that. So I'm walking past them to go to there, and she stops me and says, "I smell marijuana." So I state, "I don't smell any marijuana," and she looks to her partner and says, "Yep, I smell marijuana." So she's trying to incite something right away, and she's starting to become very authoritative too, trying even almost a level of bullying. So the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Smell does not warrant a search." And they both looked at each other, not sure what to say. So then I said, "You know that marijuana users smoke marijuana for medical purposes now, don't you?" And an officer, the male, looked at me and said, "Well, can I see your card?" And at that time I said, "I never said I had a card or indicated that. I just said in general that people smoke marijuana for medicine," implying that the smell came from outwards. So I walked back to the car, and as I went to get in, she grabbed the door as I was going to close it to prevent me from pulling the door closed. So I said, "Excuse me, ma'am," and I forcefully pulled the door from her hand and I closed it. In the meantime, while I was in, I was looking for my keys to start the car and rolled the window down that much, just about that much, enough to conduct whatever was needed, because they wanted to give me tickets for the plate was covered and I was parked in that area of a emergency route, no parking area. As I was sitting in the car, she continually berated me saying, "I smell marijuana. When did you smoke your marijuana? When did you smoke the joint? Did you just have one?" Again and again and again. She was trying to provoke me to make a mistake and trick up. And you have to understand that when you're going through that with the police, your adrenaline is flowing. I could feel my body trembling. I've gone through it before. It takes me a little while to get it under control again shortly after, but trying to keep a clear mind, all the while fiddling with my phone, I finally got the recording going, and this is the part coming up that you'll get to see, the rest of the continuation. It all had to do with the smell of marijuana and the fact that I knew my rights, and I knew that smell does not constitute them to take my rights away and suddenly be allowed to search me. So I stood my grounds, and that's what I want people to understand. And the importance too is the fact that the moment I pulled the camera out and began to record, I heard her, as she was walking away, say to him, "He's got the camera, he's recording." And then everything changed. They went and sat in the vehicle, and you'll see.
Anyway, I don't know what you're smelling, ma'am, so how else can I help you? You need to give me a ticket, right?
Yes,
And I gave you all the ID?
Okay, well, just remain in your vehicle, sir.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have licenses for those dogs, sir?
I don't at this moment. Because they're in the car, it's considered my home, and if you look at the bylaw office, I don't have to have license when they're in your own home.
Oh, okay, well, I better check my bylaw
Yeah,
then.
by all
okay?
means, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. They're going to have to explain, because you parked there too. They didn't give you a ticket, but they're willing to give me a ticket. My dog set them off. My dogs were barking. Look at that again. That's a second vehicle that's parked here, but the police aren't even giving tickets at all to the people. Isn't that interesting? Look at this, they're ignoring me. There's a lady right there. Isn't that interesting? They're really willing to throw me a ticket, but this person in front doesn't get a ticket at all. Or the one before that.
So in the video that you're seeing, I've already in the beginning, I've just informed this gentleman as he parked there not to. He actually parked there, got out of his vehicle. I yelled to him and said, don't get parking there, they'll give you a ticket like they did me. After parking on his way back, he came by and thanked me. I'm going to skip over a lot of the waiting time because he left. And then about 5 minutes later, a female. And in this one, I started to get more brazen and thinking that, geez, I lost an opportunity to prove this complete hypocritical nature of what the police were doing. This was just me being targeted because they appeared or thought they had smelled marijuana and cannabis and couldn't prove it. So out of frustration, I became a target and they punished me in other means and fashion. At this point, when the second vehicle had come up and she parked and did the very same thing I was doing and they didn't give a ticket again, they should have come by and ripped up the ticket that was given to me, but they didn't. So now I will be going and fighting and hopefully embarrassing the ridiculousness of this. This is just, it shows the corruption level of that, the fact that these police think that they can be their own judge. And just to clarify, I want people to understand, I had just smoked a joint. My car stunk, I stunk. I smoked a Kush joint, the purest of Kush, and it stunk. Like, if anybody's ever smoked Kush, then they know how potent the aroma is. So just standing your grounds is very important. Even when they claim that they smell it, and they do in fact smell it in this case. They smelt it strongly. Officers in Canada have no right to search you, your vehicle, or home because they smell cannabis. If the police had a right to be in your house or vehicle, they would be kicking or forcing, not knocking or asking. Just as you can screen who comes in and out of your house, the same goes for the police officers. Citizens are under no obligation to allow police entry into their homes or to freely search your vehicle. Do not enter the door or open your car door. Have the officer leave a business card and call them on the phone. Or roll the window down an inch and speak and deal with the officers from that. Do not open the door or window all the way to any of the police officers. Receiving an anonymous tip or hearing a rumor about you is not enough evidence for all those lazy, fat ass, donut munching police to obtain a search warrant for your house or vehicle. Instead of taking the time to do a real investigation to determine if the rumor is in fact or is in fiction, the lazy, good-for-nothing officers will perform a knock and talk, also known as a tap and rap, on your front door. With your vehicle, they will try to get consent, and staying quiet gives them permission for searches. So speak up and say aloud, I do not consent to a search. These are magical words, and they will not work unless you incite them loudly and proudly. Be prepared for the police to threaten you with all manner of retaliation, including returning with a search warrant. If they had arrived with a warrant, they would have kicked your door in instead of knocking at your door. So they bully and they outright lie. Their intention is to trick you into opening the door of home or vehicle so that they can claim an odor of marijuana is coming from inside your house or vehicle. Police will even lie and say they smell marijuana when they don't. Marijuana smell is not enough to warrant a police search and illegal search and seizure. Know your rights. The Saskatchewan Court of Appeal upheld a lower court's ruling that the smell of burned marijuana is not enough to allow police to arrest someone and conduct a warrantless search. A Saskatchewan Court of Appeal ruling that police can't search a vehicle just because they smell burned marijuana will change how police conduct themselves, a lawyer says, in December 2008. Lawyer Ron Pish successfully defended a La Louche man who was arrested after police found marijuana. However, he beat the charge when a provincial court judge ruled the arrest and search was unreasonable. In a 35-page decision released on December 14, 2008, the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal agreed and upheld the acquittal. The court said just because an officer can smell burned marijuana, it doesn't mean a suspect smoked the drug just before, and it doesn't mean a suspect is likely to be carrying marijuana. Until now, police have used the smell of marijuana as reasonable grounds to arrest someone for possession of marijuana, said Ronald Pish. Janvier's lawyer, it always struck me as a little thin, frankly. It's frankly a lazy officer's way of getting out of a warrant and getting to check a vehicle out and oftentimes finding some evidence. The case went to trial, and the judge found the arrest was a violation of Janvier's charter right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. The scent of marijuana indicated a suspicion that it was smoked, but it didn't provide reasonable and probable grounds for an arrest or a search. The judge concluded and excluded the evidence. Janvier was declared not guilty. The smell alone can't constitute the grounds, because the smell of burnt marijuana, as opposed to raw marijuana, gives an inference that the material is gone. It's dissipated into the atmosphere. So how can you say you're in possession of something that doesn't exist? The Crown appealed the verdict, and the trial judge's decision was upheld. The outcome is encouraging because the province's highest court has taken a liberal interpretation of this law, Pish said. Hoover says he may not be able to arrest people if he smells pot, but it doesn't stop him from investigating, which he should have been done in the first place. I just have to do a little bit more of an investigation, Hoover said. I just can't simply detain them and search the vehicle right away. I've got to use my head like a police officer has to do and conduct an investigation, lazy bastard. Using your head and violating rights are two different things. The Crown's lawyer said the court's decision was based on the fact that the officer didn't have any additional evidence. The court was of the view that all he had was the smell of burnt marijuana alone. He couldn't act. One of the things that came out is that the sense of smell is such a subjective thing as well. Does the strength of the investigation depend on the odor? Does the investigation depend on how good the officer's sense of smell is? It just seemed all a little vague and arbitrary, and I think this takes that out, Pish said. They need more than a sense of smell. In Canada, Section 8 of Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects all individuals from unreasonable search and seizures. For a search to be reasonable, it must be authorized by law. The law itself must be reasonable, and the manner in which the search was carried out must be reasonable. This means that the officer must be acting within the power of a valid statute, and it must be performed on the basis of there being reasonable and probable grounds that a crime has been committed. Section 8 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms provides everyone in Canada with protection against unreasonable search and seizure. This charter right provides Canadians with their primary source of constitutionally enforced privacy rights against unreasonable intrusion from the state. Under the heading of legal rights, Section 8 states, everyone has the right to be secure against unreasonable search or seizure. Any property found or seized by means of a violation of this Section 8 can be excluded as evidence in the trial under Section 24. Generally speaking, the reasonable expectation of privacy focuses on the action being unreasonable on the basis that it violates an individual's reasonable expectation of privacy. Each individual possesses the right to privacy, meaning that person has a right to be left alone by police unless there is probable cause based on objective facts that the person is committing a crime.